federal appeals court judge earlier this week halted a rule from the Joe Biden administration that was going to make it easier for some student debt possessors who receive that debt as a result of going to universities that are found to have sort of deceived the students about a variety of things involving their earning potential, those sorts of things. Now they will not be able to, at least for now, have that debt relieved. So here is what the rule said. Basically, it broadened existing policy, ending the debt of students who borrowed money to attend colleges or universities that are determined to have misled them on matters such as whether their courses would actually prepare them for employment in their field or the likely salary that they would earn upon obtaining a degree. So you might exaggerate those things to get people to sign up for a for-profit college, but then the students could end up with a lot of debt and not an easy ability to pay it off. So it sort of makes sense philosophically. Those are people who you'd prioritize for student debt cancellation. Well, Career Colleges and Schools of Texas, which is an association of for-profit higher learning institutions, filed a lawsuit against this rule earlier this year in February. Among its complaints was that the rules are so broad that they cover even unintentional actions by a college. So they appear to accept that some of these are intentional, but no, you're also catching the unintentional parts. They said that the rule unconstitutionally gives an executive branch agency, the Departments of Education, what amounts to the power of a court in deciding whether to grant claims for debt relief, which is an interesting argument to make, but I don't know, like the IRS agents, some of them can make decisions about who qualifies for different things. That's sort of relief. I feel like this you'd have to prove in court, but anyway, AB, we cannot be surprised that there's going to be pushback by the very institutions that are being found to have, lied to students to get them to pay money. What do you make about this?
It sounds like y'all misled them with fraud, right? You fraudulently induced these people to sign up for these schools under the guise that they would have these certain opportunities knowing you could not deliver, or that necessarily wasn't the case. And so either you can allow their debt to be forgiven, or where are the attorneys with the class action lawsuits, which I would assume would be more harmful in that sense, right? As opposed to just forgiving the debt, y'all could just get sued and then ultimately get shut down, and it's probably gonna be worse.
Yeah, in theory. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if those cases existed. But I would also say this is a case where, imagine if we had available public 4-year college, trade school, those sorts of things. Like if you could do that sort of thing without having to pay, we could avoid quite a bit of this as well. Like some of these institutions might still exist and they might be specialized programs or something like that. But a lot of people, I think, can reach a point where they feel very desperate. The traditional college is so expensive, or you don't have the qualifications for it, that they will turn to these sorts of things. And I'm not saying that there's no place necessarily for-profit, higher learning institutions. But obviously they're tapping into both a genuine need and also a fear that people have that they're being economically left behind. So I would say that's another reason why we should turn to public colleges and universities. In any event, we also know, and it's for the stakes of this, that people who go to these sorts of universities have a disproportionately likely to have debt, and the amount of debt that they have is disproportionate to people who go to traditional universities. So something to be worried about. It's been temporarily blocked. It will of course be appealed. This might be the sort of thing, AB, where the Supreme Court has done some really reprehensible stuff over the past few years across a number of different issue areas, including education, by the way. They have occasionally, though, done things that seem sort of reasonable. It's impossible to predict how they'll weigh on this, but I guess that's where it could end up.
If it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, right? If that's something that the Supreme Court has the choice of whether or not they want to touch this, because they've already touched on the first using the HEROES Act, right, to forgive student loans, but this is a different issue. So it may or may not even reach the Supreme Court, to be honest with you. But again, if there is evidence that you induce these students with fraud, right, that is the biggest thing, especially considering this is a corporation. That is not the type of reputation any corporation wants to have, is that you are using fraud to get people to do business with you. Like just goes against the laws of business, essentially. And so I am hoping that there is a reasonable judge out there before this even gets to the Supreme Court that will say, like, no, you guys did wrong, and you need to go ahead and allow, these students' debt to be forgiven. And then also, I think we should look at how many of these schools are still active, because if they are no longer active, right, if they have ceased in business, for example, then what are they still paying on these loans for?
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.